Okay, we're going to get started in a minute. I'll just ask that all the presenters keep their videos off for now and keep themselves muted. Am I good to go, Nate? Okay, I think we're going to get started. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Janik Goriev, and I am your host this evening for PechaKucha Night, London, Ontario. I'm also the main organizer for the event. I have been for over the last few years. But before we get started, just a quick announcement to let you know that Chantel Diashina, who is my co-host and co-organizer for this event, had to step down for personal reasons, as well as Zara Habib, one of our other speakers, had to step down as well for personal reasons tonight. So we're sending them both love and support. So this evening we will have 6 presenters instead of 8 presenters. And before we get into all of that, we will begin this event, PechaKucha Night, London, Ontario, Melanated and Unmuted, by acknowledging that we are meeting on Indigenous land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples for thousands of years. We acknowledge that this is sacred land upon which we are privileged and live and work. We recognize the deep connection and the long-standing relationship between Indigenous peoples and the land of Southwest Ontario and of London, Ontario. This land is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, which includes the Ojibwe or Chippewa Nation, the Haudenosaunee, also known as the Iroquois, which includes the Oneida Nation, the Lenape, also known as the Delaware, the Attawandaron, also known as the Neutral, and the Wendat, also known as the Huron peoples. We acknowledge that, as well as the use of treaties, not always fairly, some land was stolen outright and that many Indigenous people were killed intentionally or unintentionally due to the arrival of European settlers. First Nations cultures, languages, and traditions were also decimated because of these new settlers. Most recently, this land in the area we call London is the territory of the Chippewa of the Thames, the Oneida of the Thames, and the Munsee Delaware Nation. There are 11 First Nations communities in the region of Southwest Ontario and over 120 in the province as a whole. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions of Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made both in shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions and historic importance of Indigenous peoples must also be clearly and overtly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities, and to bring justice for murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls across our country. As settlers, this recognition of the contributions of our, moving forward, we will continue to acknowledge and honor the work we all need to do for truth and reconciliation. And taking this walk together, we will build a foundation to build stronger partnerships based on the highest values of respect and kindness. Megawitch, thank you. So it's very odd to do an event online when this is usually an in-person event. So before we get into introducing our presenters, I thought I would give everybody a little bit of background on the PechaKucha Night type of event, as well as the one here in London, Ontario. So PechaKucha means chit-chat in Japanese. It's the sound of chit-chat, I'm told. And it was created about 20 years ago by 2 architects in Tokyo named Mark and Astrid, and they're still the main organizers of PechaKucha worldwide. And so it's called PechaKucha. It's also known as PechaKucha 20 by 20. And basically each presenter organizes their own PowerPoint slide deck. 20 images, 20 slides. Each slide automatically advances every 20 seconds. And it gives the presenter 6 minutes and 40 seconds to give a clear and concise presentation. And the reason why Mark and Astrid started this platform many years ago is because they wanted to give architects and designers an opportunity to give short and concise presentations. Now there's over close to 1,300 cities around the world that host PechaKucha Nights, and there's always a variety of topics and a variety of presenters. the reason why I started PechaKucha Night in London, Ontario. I had presented at a leadership conference in BC many years ago, and it was a PechaKucha style presentation that they were looking for presenters to do. I loved the format. I thought it was really cool. It was really simple and really fun. So I reached out to the head office in Tokyo, feeling very international. And I reached out and said, I'd like to be a host for London, Ontario, because there wasn't one here in London. And so we've hosted 11 events in person. The first 10 events were at Innovation Works here in London, Ontario. And the last in-person event happened a month before the whole world shut down last year. And we hosted that event at B13. And so this is our first PechaKucha event virtually. And so we thank you in advance for your patience as we work with tech in a different way. And so, yes, thank you very much for your support in that. And a quick note as to why I wanted to do this particular event, PechaKucha Night, Melanated and Unmuted. It's actually the first time we've ever done a themed PechaKucha Night. And being heard and feeling understood is an important part of healing our bodies, our spirits and communities, considering the ongoing violence and murder of Black, Indigenous, and people of color happening in Canada and around the world. As an event planner, excuse me for a second here. As an event planner, I wanted to hold space and help amplify the voices of our BIPOC community members to share their own lived experiences so that we may listen, learn, and act however that looks like in your life. Our goal is to create a safe space, which is key to dialogue and trust building. And we welcome comments and questions from the audience in the chat section on the YouTube page. And we will take questions after each presentation. The basis of this event is around inclusivity, and we want to create a safe space that is supportive to all attendees and presenters. And we thank you in advance for your support and your help with this. And a big thank you to our friend Katie Boychuk, who is also a PechaKucha London, Ontario alumni presenter who is moderating the chat and monitoring the YouTube chat as well. Also, big thanks to Nate and Vince of Lab Solutions. They are doing all the tech stuff for us. So the presenters are meeting by Zoom and we're broadcasting by YouTube. I don't understand how that works, but thank goodness for people who are tech experts. And so, our presenters, let's get into it. I know there's some of them are feeling a bit some nerves, so we're going to give them lots of love through that chat and get started with our event. So tonight's presenters will include Amanda Kennedy, Mercedes Kasha, Sunday Ajak, Danielle Kimmel, Chloe Ngakoso, and Leroy Hibbert. Okay, so Amanda, do you want to unmute yourself for a second, friend?
Hello.
Perfect. Nate, we're good to go for sound for Amanda, I think. I think so. I think we're good. Okay, I'm going to get started by introducing you, Amanda, and then we will, ignore that. And then we'll get started with your presentation. So welcome Amanda L. Kennedy, who is Haudenosaunee, a marginalized urban Indigenous child and youth of yesterday who grew up in London, Ontario. Today, Amanda is an Indigenous woman innovator, an advocate business coach and mentor for Indigenous youth and women entrepreneurs, and an innovative anti-racist educator, consultant, curriculum, community, economic developer, and facilitator. So she is a Wonder Woman. Amanda is the founder of 2 social enterprises and a youth digital hub. The first social enterprise is called Guasana Hawi. I'm going to try that again. Guasana Hawi Enterprises, an Indigenous youth-led social enterprise Yotuni that empowers marginalized Indigenous youth. Excuse me. Amanda provides innovative education, consultation, facilitation, curriculum development, staff training, and holds space for learning, healing, and growth through storytelling, sharing circles, smudging, and teachings. The second social enterprise is an online support platform for youth called 10 Youth Digital Hub, Truth Empowering Nations. By utilizing her innovative education, lived experiences, traditional, spiritual, and Indigenous ways, she mindfully bridges gaps in truth, colonized systems, and reconciliation by educating marginalized, colonized Indigenous people, communities, as well as non-Indigenous people, businesses, institutions, change makers, future leaders, and that keeps happening. Future leaders and allies, empowering them all to mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Amanda's presentation is entitled Working Together Towards Decolonization, and we'll talk about how we need a lot more truth and deep listening before we take steps towards reconciliation. We need to identify who we are, how we are showing up in the world, and how to take steps forward, focusing on the true effects it has on change and not just the intention. Healing and growth takes time, and it takes courage, wisdom, honesty, and respect, true love, and humility. Together, we can learn, heal, and grow, creating a stronger, positive impact for a better future for all people from all walks of life. Welcome, Amanda. I will take your cue and give you your 5-second countdown when you are ready.
I'm ready.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
Sagoli, Kawasana Hawine Yongat, Onyada Aga, Ongwe Hongwe, Okwali. My name's Amanda Kennedy. I'm from Oneida First Nation of the Thames. I'm Haudenosaunee, and I'm Bear Clan. And my spirit name is Gawasana Hawi. And it means they carry her name for her. And I'm happy to be here today to talk about the truth about Indigenous people and to share it from my own lived experiences, but also to share from, I'm an advocate. So I'm here to speak on behalf of my ancestors and speak for my people today. When it comes to Indigenous people, and we're talking about Indigenous people, we're very spiritual people that are very kind and considerate. A lot of our teachings are always talking about how we need to be working together, how we support each other. One of our teachings is the 2-row long wampum belt. And that what it is it's a belt with 2 purple lines on it. And that belt means that when we walk in life together, that we support each other, but we don't cross each other. We don't take from each other. We share. So as Indigenous people, we're very on the land. We're very involved with the land. We're keepers of the land. We're very nurturing people. So we're always taking care of each other. We're always taking care of the land, taking care of the animals, taking care of all of creation. And we all have our own responsibilities. So a lot of our women were warriors as well too, who protected the land and made sure that we were all taking care of each other. When it comes to treaties, a lot of people think that Indigenous people really wanted to work together, and we did want to live in harmony together. However, that's not how it went down. In this picture, you see this gentleman crying, and it's because they said, were you going to kill all your people? You sign over your land. So that's the way that they got the land. That's how they treated the people. So as you can see, Canada has a lot of Indigenous people that were living on this land way before, around the 1400s, before the settlers were here. Indigenous people were across the land. They were taking good care of the land, taking care of each other, sharing resources, bartering, and living in harmony with each other. There was no wars. There was no violence. We were just all taking care of ourselves. We were doing our ceremonies. We were living in our traditions, and just living in harmony and peace and enjoying being people of this land and taking care of ourselves. We took care of the water. We took care of the animals. We have many ceremonies that take care of all of this as well too, because we're always honoring Mother Earth and all of creation. Even when we do our land acknowledgement, it's more of an opening prayer because we're acknowledging Mother Earth, the trees, we're acknowledging the sun, the moon, the land animals, the water animals. And that's just what Indigenous people do. So a lot of our ceremonies, again, it has to do with the seasons. The reason we have these ceremonies is because we're trying to take care of the land. Right now it's spring, so we're going to be doing like seed ceremonies. We're doing song ceremonies for the seedlings so that the plants can grow and strive so that they can produce and provide for our community as well. So when Canada was formed, the one thing that what they did for many years was they tried to take out the Indigenous people. They were constantly either trying to take out the tribes, they were trying to take out the food supplies, they were taking our women and children, they were killing our men, and they did everything that they could to destroy our people and take them apart. Once Canada was formed, they felt like they needed to bring their ways of life onto us, and that's where they opened up residential schools. They felt like the Indigenous people weren't living properly on the land. They felt like our traditions and our culture weren't appropriate, and that we weren't, that we needed that help and a different way of knowledge and a different way of living to take care of ourselves in the land. So murdered and missing Indigenous women is another major crisis that we have. So residential schools, as you see here, we're people of the land. So when we were learning from our elders, we were learning from our warriors, we were learning from the women, and they were teaching us our roles and responsibilities. They were teaching us how to take care of the land, how to take care of our communities, how to take care of our tribes. And when the settlers came, they ripped us away from that and put us into residential schools. Another huge issue is the murdered and missing Indigenous women. A lot of our women have gone missing or are murdered, and a lot of our families are reaching out and screaming for help and saying that our women are being targeted, our women are being abused, our women are being treated like they're worthless. And we keep crying out. So as we do, what I do is through my work is I empower Indigenous women. And as you can see, we work with the BIPOC community as well, because we all know what it's like to be racialized. We know what it's like to go through what we have to go through. So we always support each other and lift each other up in how we can. One way is we educate our youth. Or through Yotani, we bring in a lot of Indigenous leaders, women and female leaders that have different gifts and different life experiences, different lived experiences, where they go and we educate these youth. We teach them, about how hard it is to be an Indigenous person, but how amazing it is to be an Indigenous person as well, too. So we're always educating our youth. We're always talking about mental health and emotions, because we know a lot of our youth are struggling. Not only are they struggling with just living in today's society and picking up all this trauma and living through all this trauma and all these mental health, but they're also struggling with their mental health because of intergenerational trauma. They carry the trauma of their grandparents, their parents, their great-grandparents. So what we're doing is we're always empowering youth. If there's any kind of training that we can do, whether it's giving them a voice, whether it's giving them the confidence to speak their truth, we're always doing what we can to empower these youth, because these are our future leaders. And when I'm growing up the way that I grew up, I struggled and watched a lot of my youth go down the wrong paths. So we're always trying to hold camps. We know a lot of our Indigenous youth like art. We're always talking to our youth, and we're always listening to them to see what they want to hear, what they want to see, what they want to learn. And they're very open and honest with us when you create that safe space for them. So we work with many youth. I've been doing camps since 2016, educating these youth and empowering them, because again, a lot of people dismiss them. A lot of people, I know as myself as an Indigenous youth, I was told that I was worthless. I was told that I was waste of time by my teachers, by my guidance counselors, by the principals. So when you grow up feeling like that, you struggle as an adult. So also what I do through my other business, Go West and Hawi, is I empower Indigenous women. These Indigenous women are amazing leaders within our community, and there's many more here through this program. All have amazing social enterprises that all want to help our community in some way. The one beauty about Indigenous people, when they pull groups together, when they do initiatives, when they do any kind of business, it's all about empowering our community some way. And through this picture, you see that we work with allies as well, too. We work together, Indigenous people working with allies and coming together to listen, to learn, to understand each other. And that way, I feel like us coming together, and the more we educate ourselves about the Indigenous issues, the more we educate ourselves and acknowledge what's happening with Indigenous communities, what's happening with our youth, what's happening with our women, the more awareness that we can bring forward, the more changes that can come forward. When everyone wants to walk around with their eyes closed, then it just leaves us as Indigenous people struggling on our own. So I go around and I educate non-Indigenous students as well. So I work at the Catholic School Board, Thames Valley District School Board, Western University, Brescia, IB, and just educating non-Indigenous people again on our culture, on how holistic we are, and it just planting seeds, planting these seeds of knowledge, planting these seeds of awareness, I believe is what's really going to help change and bring forth positive change for the Indigenous people, especially our Indigenous youth and our Indigenous women who are really struggling right now, especially during a pandemic. Sadly, our communities were already had the highest rates with everything, struggling with abuse, struggling with addiction, suicide, and all of that. So Yotani is what's here what the youth of yesterday needed, and it's here for the youth of today. That sweetgrass means is it's in a braid, and as if when the teaching behind that is when we're together and we're united, we're stronger. So that's what we do. I can go around educating people, find those people that are really passionate about learning, finding those people that really want to learn the truth about Indigenous people, that want to share their power and privilege and see how they can help bring positive change for the Indigenous people, because they know the Indigenous people were the first people here. They know the sad history. And yeah, so we're thankful to be here, and I'm thankful to share this presentation with you. Yanko.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Maybe all the presenters can unmute themselves for a second so we can do an official applause. Yes. Thank you so much. Apologies at the beginning there, Amanda. There was a little glitch with the slides not forwarding, so I'm sorry if that felt a little bit choppy to you, but then we got it going. So I will just double check some of the slides before we move ahead with Mercedes right now. Thank you so much, Megawitch, Amanda, for sharing your experiences and your story with us, and all the amazing work that you're doing in our community and various communities in London and areas. So thank you. Katie, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. If you could maybe let us know if there's any questions for Amanda. I'm just going to double check the slides before we move forward with Mercedes' presentation, or if there's any comments you can share.
Absolutely, Janik. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amanda, that was an incredible presentation, and you make the 2020 format look really easy. Thank you for kicking us off today. I have a couple of comments to reference, and then a few questions here. So just pulling out from your presentation, I think some key pieces to remind everybody is that we all have our own responsibilities. That was really profound. And a question regarding planting seeds of awareness. So that's a great metaphor. And you talked about seed ceremonies. Can you share a little bit more about the symbolism behind that and why that's important?
Yes, so with our culture, we believe whenever we're doing anything, we always bring in our ancestors. We always bring in our songs. Our songs are like our prayers. So whenever we're doing the seedlings now and we're getting ready for our community gardens, we bring the women forward and they sing, and that's our ceremony. That's us doing that ceremony for those seeds and gifting those seeds of that good energy, and knowing, and that song also prays for it so that it gives good, not only grows strong, but it gives a good support to our community as well too. So we're giving thanks to that seed. We're giving thanks to Mother Earth. We're giving thanks to, the water that's going to grow that seed. And that's just what that song is doing, is acknowledging all of that process and acknowledging what all happens with that in that process.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Katie. Any other questions for Amanda?
Just another comment to share and one last question. Just with regards to your comments about mental health and emotions and how important it is to acknowledge that and to address that and bring awareness to it, that different generations are carrying trauma. There's just a comment here that that's something to be really mindful of, especially as we are navigating the pandemic. So just wanted to bring that forward. Do you have any comments there, Amanda, that you'd like to share?
Yes, be very mindful of that. A lot of people, when they hear about Indigenous issues or they get a little bit of awareness, their first instinct is obviously great that they want to learn more, but they want to come to the Indigenous people. And you got to realize that we're already going through a lot. We're still learning our truth. So you have to take that upon yourself to educate yourself.
That's great. We just had another question come in through the chat from Angela, and she's asking, how can we support your work, Amanda?
Yes, so we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook as well too. So you can follow us under Yotani Social Enterprise. And yeah, we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for donations. We're going to be bringing out a bunch of youth leaders next and doing a series of getting them to speak their truth. So we're always looking for support in that way. We're always trying to build up our digital platform. So any kind of tech support we're always looking for. But yeah, no, and even people that just want to learn and get more involved, we're always open to that too. So reach out to us, and we're always happy to make that connection and see how we can collaborate or grow together and learn together.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. The last question that I'll put towards you, Amanda, could you give us an example of one of the social enterprises that the youth activity or initiative is going forward?
Yes, so right now we actually bringing out a big garden project because we're really trying to work on the food security for Oneida. So we actually have Urban Roots that's offering us some land space. We have Growing Chefs that's really helping us, the London Environmental Network. And we're also working with Oneida Chief and Council, the Longhouse on Oneida, and the Child Care and Women's Shelter. So in this project, we're coming together, we're doing community healing gardens. So we're going to bring in the teachings, we're going to help people get back to the land, not only growing their food security, but also just learning about their teachings again and just that reconnection with Mother Earth and all of creation. And so that's what the next project that we're doing, and we're excited for that. And we're doing home gardens as well too. So our aim is to have 200 Oneida community members have home gardens, whether it's on reserve or off reserve. So that's going amazing. We got some funding lined up, and we're excited to bring that project out. And we're always looking for volunteers to help with our gardens or anything like that too. So.
That's amazing, Amanda. Thank you so much. I know Katie mentioned there's lots of people sending their applause and comments through the YouTube chat. So once again, amazing work that you're doing and for the community, and so many great initiatives and some great collaborations happening as well. So thank you again for joining us tonight. Okay, so next presenter, Mercedes, you're up next. Let's test your sound for a second, friend.
I'm here.
You're there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. I realized what the problem was when the slide kept advancing automatically when I was introducing Amanda, I think. So it shouldn't happen again. So here we go. And I'll take your cue after I introduce you, Mercedes, before giving you the 5-second countdown as well. This is Mercedes Kasha. I'm proud to say also a friend of mine, and also I volunteer for Sunfest that you're going to learn about more in a second. But Mercedes Kasha has contributed to the ongoing success of multiple arts and nonprofit organizations and festivals in Southern Ontario. In these various roles, she has been responsible for logistics, recruiting vendors and exhibitors, marketing and social media, as well as scouting and programming artists. For the past decade, Mercedes has been the artistic co-director for Sunfest, which presents thoughtful, innovative global arts programming in London, Ontario. She is now head of programs for Small World Music, which showcases and supports culturally diverse artists and partners in Toronto, Ontario. This is Mercedes. I believe this is your second presentation, right, Mercedes? PechaKucha presentation. Yep. Or third?
Yeah, second.
Right? Second time presenting at a PechaKucha Night, London, Ontario. The title of her presentation is Not Just the Skin I'm In, and we'll explore all the different identities that make up who she is, and that it's not just about the skin that she is in. Mercedes identifies as so many things, so let's find out how these have shaped her, who she is, and her everyday experiences. So I will click on that countdown for you when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us tonight, Mercedes.
Thanks for having me. So thank you for inviting me to this talk. My initial thought was to talk about my intersectional identities and how they depend on these socio-demographically defined markers such as woman, Latina, brown, dark-haired markers.
Sorry, Mercedes, my apologies. My apologies. It's total host error. I forgot to share my screen. My apologies.
All good, all good. I'll start again.
Okay.
You let me know. You let me know.
All right. Sharing screen now. Gonna do the countdown. My apologies. Technology. Okay, here we go.
Love it.
There's your countdown.
Okay.
Or not.
Okay.
Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Let's try that again.
Okay. So I'll start again. So my initial thought was to talk about my intersectional identity. Many of my identities depend on those socio-demographically defined markers such as woman, Latina, brown, dark-haired, Canadian, Guatemalan, first-generation Canadian, millennial, trilingual, educated, active, cultural worker, tons of things that I definitely identify myself with. And sorry, Janik, I don't think it's moving forward. Okay. So the subject of identity has always been something I've struggled and questioned with, which I'm sure is nothing new for any human. However, I feel that there's a certain uncertainty felt and experienced by people of color, specifically children of immigrants, or in my case, refugees, and how they fit into this world. When I was doing my French degrees, I learned of a term that I had not thought of before, l'altérité, specifically when diving deep into the first and second generation North African literature. I had never heard of the term in English before, alterity, which is defined by the sense of otherness. And growing up as a person of color in London, Ontario in the 80s and 90s was not an easy thing. The sense of otherness always existed. The first thing people saw were my skin and hair colors in Canada. And the first thing people heard when I went back to Guatemala was my accent when I spoke Spanish. So this always created a divide between myself and in my peers. And I never really felt like I fit in really anywhere. But rather than explore these checkbox identities, I decided to explore more so how others who were close to me saw me, defined me, perceived me, and presumably positively saw me, as I did go into my friends and family, and I assumed they would be positive, and how those were motivated by being a person of color, especially growing up in a very white city. So it's kind of a risky endeavor, as you never know which words will pop out, but also given the times we're in, sometimes you need a reminder of who you are, what you value, how others value you. These are really lonely times that we're living in right now, and the sense of self can sometimes be really lost among the endless Zoom meetings that are happening around us. And I felt the need to explore the ones that really stuck out to me because they were repeated several times, or also because some surprised me. Some of the words also have a deeper meaning and perhaps are a shield or a defense mechanism motivated specifically by being a person of color. So first, relating words that stuck out to me were strength and headstrong, and related to this as well, grounding. Upon further conversation, many told me that they see me as a source of strength, as a grounding source, which is something I accept with pride in my own self-view as a fierce and loyal friend. I know I can take on a lot, and I love to advocate for social justice issues. But at the same time, it's really difficult to digest these words, as I feel like I need to be strong. You need to be strong as a melanated person, as a person of color, as a woman. If you're not, what are you? You're always carrying around the burden of multiple identities, constantly having to advocate, stand up for what we believe in. But it's tiring. I'm tired. I know many of my peers are tired, which brings me to my next word, which is energetic. And perhaps that sometimes that's the face that we need to put on because we feel like we need to demonstrate this positive mental attitude, this energy to animate others, to be the spice and the exotic one in our friend groups, especially in London, Ontario. But unfortunately, this energy can be draining if it feels exploited, if it feels tokenized or expected. And if we're not this energetic or this life of the party, what are we? A person of color suffering from imposter syndrome? It's hard to understand, especially when your life's work is empowerment and advocacy for others. Every single day you advocate for yourself to exist within a world that sets up barriers for you to fail or show you that you are second rate. That doesn't want you to strive, succeed, or survive. And what you need to do is have passion. Passion and passionate. Many of my friends have used this word. It was repeated several times and described to me that it's who I am in my social life, passion for the professional work that I do, and that it emanates from me. I'm profoundly humbled that so many people see me this way, and I hope that it will inspire others. And when you have passion for something, you love something even when you hate it. At difficult times like these, when the fruit of my labor is all digital as opposed to gathering people with music, seeing smiling faces, dancing bodies, and joy, it can be really challenging to continue that passion. But something that will not die is my passion for empowerment, for advocacy, for the industry, for women, and for equity-seeking voices. We're not just the skin we're living in. We are not defined by this color. Last year in 2020, so many inequities surfaced due to the pandemic. So many organizations and companies practice EDI. Does that truly protect the people with melanated skin and for women when the laws and policies that are not enacted in the same way that they're put down on paper? As life returns to normal, I have to ask, do we have space for these EDI conversations, and will white leaders already be done with it? And so therefore change, we need change. A word that surprised me was at first the one that I came to love was transformative. I thought a lot about what it meant and why someone would describe me as this. I've always been a fan of change. Change is something we should all be open to, that we must learn to accept and adapt. I believe it allows us to progress as a people and as a society. In a society that becomes stagnant, we need the change. We need to be the leaders. I'm proud to represent some equity-seeking voices, Latinx voices, women, immigrants. Whereas our very existence requires more energy for us to be so, we are more likely to be these leaders. And I'm proud to say that we are. I want to highlight the positive words that my friends and families have said. And they're obviously not going to give me negative ones. They're my friends and family. But I automatically just felt the need to contradict them. But why then? Can't I pose myself with the same confidence as some mediocre middle-aged white man? This one, the one that gets all the positions and all the power and the voice of authority. Why can't myself, a young, strong woman of color, why can't I position myself the same way and command the room? I'm passionate, but that passion can be redefined by others as hysterical, crazy, fiery. Why is it different? And would it be different if they were describing a white man? This is something that I've struggled with a lot. In the end, all of these words have good and bad connotations and are perhaps motivated by the trauma that I and other people of color have experienced. But ultimately, I want strength and passion to be the two words that move me forward. And that's why I highlighted them so much in this presentation. Our identities are what make us, but also break us. We have to find a balance between all of them. We have to find a balance between the different cultures, traditions, finding strength from our ancestors and honoring that. And I encourage everyone to take a moment to explore your values, your words, and your identities. It was definitely a weird exercise to undertake, and it was very, very hard to write a presentation with some humility, of course. But at the same time, it did teach me and gave me a moment to love myself and a moment to love others as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercedes. Once again, my apologies for that little glitch at the beginning. For some reason, that first slide, Zoom is not automatically advancing it. So Sunday, I will keep track on a timer for you for your next presentation. Mercedes, I know you mentioned to me this week as well, it's hard to talk about yourself, but also, you know, with everything going on in the world and all the emotions around it. And so I thank you for putting yourself out there and for sharing your experiences with us. I think Katie's going to share some comments and maybe a question for us while I just double check Sunday's slides. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Hi, Mercedes.
Hi.
The first comment that I want to share with you is from Danielle, and she's just thanking you so much for speaking to this topic. You've really inspired her.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's really, I was sharing with some friends that it was very, very difficult to write this topic. When I first came up with it, I was like, yeah, I'll explore all these different identities and, you know, go into what make me up and, you know, or explore that in myself. But yeah, it's really difficult to self-reflect during these times, especially when it's just like, all you want to do is read a book or turn on the TV. But no, it was a good experience. And like, I think it really will teach a lot to yourself as to how others see you. So I encourage everyone to do that same exercise. It was really, really scary.
That's a great plug for folks stepping in to do one of these presentations, Mercedes. Just another comment to share with you as well, that your presentation largely talked about strength and positivity. And I think that's definitely something that we could all use a little bit of. And your presentation around these positive words really speaks to self-love, which I think is really important. We have another question here. I love that you are identifying yourself with these positive words. How does this change as we change and evolve? Have you revisited this exercise of asking friends and family to describe you with words? And has that changed over time?
Actually, this is pretty much the first time I've ever done it. So it hasn't really changed. But I think one of the things that I put myself to before I wrote this was like, well, I can't just focus on the positive. I have to understand how it could be maybe a negative. You know, for example, when I was talking about energy, like a lot of people see me as energetic and like the life of the party if I go somewhere. And, you know, sometimes I've really thought about that a lot, because it could be just a defense mechanism or perhaps a mask that one puts on, especially when you're not really sure of who you are or who you could be. And so therefore you feel like you have to fit into this one way that people see you, or a way to fit in or something like that. So I tried really hard to look at the two sides of the coin for all of the words that people use to describe me. And I also have to say that I asked people to use 5 words, and whereas most people gravitate towards adjectives, I said adjectives or nouns, because I didn't necessarily, usually adjectives could maybe be a bit more positive. So nouns, so things like traveler or music lover, things like that. I actually expected a lot more music related words, to be honest with you. So it was nice to see a lot of them, especially leader, because I've never really thought of myself as one. But then when I really was thinking about this presentation and exploring it, and it's like, well, a lot of the stuff that I do is advocacy, and that's a form of leadership. And so I think women, especially women of color, really need to embrace that and use that for their own empowerment.
And you are a leader, Mercedes.
Thanks. So are you, Janik.
In many, many ways, my friend. Yeah. Any other comments or questions, Katie? I think that was it.
Just a lot of people thanking you, Mercedes, and giving you good props in the chat today. I think this is just also a great reminder of the power of words. And when you use positive words, it brings out positivity, and negative words bring out negativity. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Mercedes. It was great.
Thank you, Mercedes. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Katie. Okay, Sunday. You're up next, my friend. I'll get you to unmute yourself so we can just test out the sound for a second.
How do I sound?
Sounds perfect. Sounds
Awesome.
perfect. And speaking of positivity and negativity, I know that you like to turn negativity into positivity as well. So I will share my screen this time, Nate. And I will get started with introducing you, Sunday.
Awesome.
And I think I figured out the issue with the slides, so we'll see. But if we have to restart it, it's no problem. Here we go. Okay. Sunday Ajak, a 22-year-old Sudanese Canadian Western University student studying third-year social justice, has been publicly speaking for the past 5 years. Sunday started speaking in high school from time to time and knew he had a desire to become a speaker. It was one day at his high school when he saw Leroy Hibbert, who's our last presenter today, at a school assembly. Things changed for this young spoken word poet. Sunday admits that during these assemblies, he usually faded off, yet hearing Leroy talk made Sunday listen that day and held on to every word Leroy said. Spoken word is not Sunday's only gift of words. He is also a motivational speaker, inspiring others when he speaks at events that are aimed at feel-good words. Sunday has performed both spoken word and motivational speaking at various events at Western University and high schools in London and surrounding areas. With COVID-19 having taken its toll in so many ways, this has given Sunday even more drive, ambition, and motivation to take his inner thoughts and put them to words. Sunday's spoken word technique is unlike the standard spoken word found at poetry slams. Sunday has his own style and flow that tells his craft in story form with emotion. Sunday turns negative energy into positive energy. His aura when he performs is an experience all on its own, giving every ounce of passion and energy that this incredible young artist has. Sunday's PK presentation is entitled How to Find Your Meaning. Sunday will be presenting a written piece on how to find peace in life and pursue through hardships that it brings. Welcome, Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I will click that 5-second timer when you're ready.
Amazing. I'm all set.
Okay, perfect. Here we go.
So imagine, if you will, that once you fell asleep every night, you were given the power to dream any dream you could possibly dream and be in complete control of what you could think of. Every night, your dreams would create world after world. You would have an adventure after an adventure. And eventually, with time, you would sit back and wonder, what if I dreamt a life that I could not control? What if I let my power fade away? What if I had a dream and not know what would happen? And after time, you would soon forget that you were dreaming at all. Eventually, dreaming a life similar to what you live right now. There's a saying that says, in this life, you are the ultimate reality. The real you is not merely a puppet that life throws around, but the real deep down you is the entire universe brought into one. I say this because I want you to understand the power that you have in this life. I mean, the only reason why I'm here, any of us are here, is because of you, now isn't it? So let my voice be a constant reminder of the events that your mere existence can put into motion. You and life are one and the same. One implies the other, while the other implies itself. The same way that birth implies death or love implies hate. You imply life, the same way that life implies meaning. Think of it like this. So long as I let what happens to me control the way that I live, then I have forfeited the power over my life. And now I am a victim of the constant onslaught of pain that life has to give. A life that we have convinced ourselves is only worth living if there's something to strive for. That there's a reason to go through this mundane reality we call life. That there's a reason to go to school. There's a reason to pay these bills. There's a reason to do anything. Not too sure my slides are progressing. See, my entire presentation is based off the idea of me telling you how to find meaning in your life. But in reality, I don't know. I mean, who am I to tell you what your meaning is when I also struggle to find it on my own? So to answer the question that I have been posed, how do you find the meaning in your life? My answer to you is, you don't. It finds you. And this is where things start to make a little more sense. So enough with the spirituality. Let's talk about the number one reason why many people don't or can't recognize meaning in their life. And granted, this is just my perspective, but it comes with the same amount of certainty that life does. Very little. So with that being said, I want you to look at your life and ask yourself this. Is there something in my life right now that I can find meaning within? If your answer is yes, then congratulations. If your answer is no, then I suggest you look a little harder. Because the funny thing is, life will give you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. So if any point in your life you have wondered what your meaning was, I can promise you right now, you've probably been introduced to it already. So whatever it is that you're thinking of, recognize that this just might be one of the meanings in your life. See, what many people don't realize is that finding your meaning is not a one and done. There can and most likely are multiple meanings to your life. And this often comes as a shock to many people because we have been taught, and I don't know why we choose to believe it, but we have been taught that once we find a meaning to life, that it is the meaning to life, and there could be no other. So because we only think that there could be one meaning to life, we put so much pressure on making it the perfect meaning, because that will lead to the perfect life, right? But how many of you have lived a perfect life so far? You see, living a perfect life is impossible. I know you think you see it online, but if no one's told you yet, none of that is real. So the first step to finding meaning in your life is to realize that perfection is a myth. To say that something is perfect would be to imply that it is consumed in the positive. And when we look at life in all its perfection, we can clearly observe a multitude of negatives. This life works in a balance. For every force, there's an echo. So when we look at life and try to find meaning within it, you will never find a meaning by just looking at the positive aspects of your life. Because positivity in the absence of negativity is just naivety. When have you ever known life to be just positive? That is a fairy tale. So I will leave you with this. To dream the dream of life, we must know that sometimes we will experience nightmares. And within those nightmares, it will seem that we are dreaming for no reason, that there is no meaning as to why we are living this life. But when that time comes, I want you to remember one thing. We only dream while we sleep. So if you are experiencing a nightmare with no meaning in sight, it must mean that you just haven't awoken yet. So from me to you, just wake up and your meaning will come. So how do you find meaning in your life? My answer is this. You don't, because it finds you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunday. I feel like I'm apologizing to all of our presenters for the slide advancement. I think I figured out what the issue was. I'm going to disable the chat. It seems to slow it down sometimes. But anyway, Sunday, thank you. What a beautiful presentation. A couple people were asking if you do voiceovers or have your own podcast.
I do.
You do.
Yeah, as you can tell, I'm talking into this little mic right here.
Cool.
This is what I do to record my voice. I do some podcast. If I write a piece, I record it and then post it online.
Super cool.
So yeah.
That's great. What a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Katie also reminded me that there's a 20-second delay to YouTube right now. So we'll just let comments and maybe questions catch up for a second. Anything in particular that came up yet, Katie?
A lot of people are giving big claps and really feel inspired by Sunday's presentation. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling very inspired by your presentation. So no questions yet, but just a comment here that this concept, and you really beautifully began with this idea of dreams and continued into that in your conclusion. I'm sure you crafted that especially for the audience today, but it was a really great way to kind of, embody that and really understand that. I think it also really nicely connected to the two previous presentations that we heard when we're talking about bringing awareness to self and to the earth, and the positive words that we can use to describe ourselves and how our friends and family see us. And then hearing you, Sunday, talking about finding meaning within that and seeing the balance between the positive and negative in life totally rounds that out very nicely. So
I agree,
just
Katie.
wanted to add that comment.
Thank you.
Perfect. So we'll give it a second. Any other questions coming through, Katie, for Sunday? And we'll have time at the end as well if anything comes up for the audience. If they want to ask any of the particular presenters, we can definitely loop back around. So thank you again, Sunday, for joining us today. Really, really appreciate you sharing your spoken word, your style of spoken word, and your story, and the beautiful images that you shared as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Janik, we just have one question that's come in from Mercedes. What is the podcast, Sunday, so folks can go to look for it?
If you were to search up my name, Sunday, on any platform, YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, you'll find some of like voiceovers that I've done, of things that I've written, things that have been sent to me. Yeah.
And small world story, because it wasn't until Sunday actually sent me his bio that I realized he had a connection to Leroy, who we had also booked for today. So yeah, just small world story for London, Ontario. That's for sure.
Very.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again, Sunday. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of really great comments, and everybody's feeling very inspired and resonating so much with what you've said, Sunday. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, I believe is Danielle. I'm going to, maybe you could just unmute yourself for a second, friend.
All good.
Sorry, say again, Danielle?
All good.
Okay, perfect. So fingers crossed, there's no glitches with your slides. If there are, we can do a quick reset, but I will definitely keep an eye on them. And I think it's a Zoom thing. I think there's something delaying with Zoom, but I think I have it figured out. So yes, as soon as I hit before I hit the 5-second countdown, Danielle, I will mute myself because I think that's an issue as well. Anyway, we'll get there. Here we go. Okay. Danielle is a 30-something working mom of 2, wife of 11 years, and small business owner and University of Waterloo alum. Having that many hats and facets to her identity may have come naturally to her, as she is also a biracial and a pansexual member of the rainbow community. Growing up in a predominantly white middle-class neighborhood presented challenges. Oh, sorry, guys. My apologies. Growing up in a predominantly white middle-class neighborhood. I'm just going to start again, everyone, because I'm not showing the screen, and now we're there. Okay. I'm going to start again, Danielle. Okay. Danielle is a 30-something working mom of 2, wife of 11 years, and small business owner, and University of Waterloo alum. Having that many hats and facets to her identity may have come naturally to her, as she is also biracial and a pansexual member of the rainbow community. Growing up in a predominantly white middle-class neighborhood presented its challenges. Children can be mean, and she had to learn how to navigate those unique challenges and bullying that comes from being an other, quotes. Now an adult, Danielle is using her voice to help initiate meaningful change within her community, as well as in her small business and suppliers, to hopefully one day remove hurtful and offensive verbiage used on product labels. Microaggressions cause pain, and she believes that speaking up against hurtful labeling is crucial. Danielle believes representation matters. She never really saw people that looked like her in the media growing up. She believes that genuine, non-performative allyship is powerful. Danielle is hopeful for change. The title of Danielle's PechaKucha presentation is "What Are You?" Danielle will explore the unique challenges and microaggressions that she has experienced growing up, as a multiracial female. She will apply a lens using today's narrative and how it is different from when this quote unquote elder millennial, that's what she quoted herself, not me, was a kid. Okay, so I'm gonna set you, get you organized here, and are you ready to go?
I am.
Awesome.
Where are you from? What's your background? You know what I mean. Where are your parents from? What are you? What are you? It's a question I asked myself a lot growing up, and I still do sometimes. Where do I belong? Where do I fit in this world? Why am I always too much and not enough? Not white enough, not black enough. Too white, too black. I am both and I am neither. I have a counter question that I never get to ask because I have to avoid being combative or threatening. Why do you care? And why do you think you're entitled to that information? If you have ever asked that question, what were your motives for acquiring the information? Just because you wanted to know? Or because your privilege whispered that you need this information to know how to treat me? Or because you wanted to know more about the person you were asking? That matters, and we can tell in how you phrase the question what your intentions are. We can feel it. I grew up in a predominantly white middle-class neighborhood. I had a unibrow, a mustache, and bad skin. And on top of all of that, I wasn't like everyone else. I didn't look like everyone else. I didn't have blonde, straight hair. I didn't have hairless legs. I was a teacher's pet, and my dad looked different than everyone else's. I remember when I came to that realization, I must have been 5 or 6, the first time my little brain registered that other people's dads were mostly white. My brain thought it looked so strange. A white man is your father? Weird. They probably thought the same about mine. He was the first Black person a lot of kids I knew got to interact with, and they loved him. I'm often told I'm a lot like him. jovial, funny, warm, confident, and charming. I wasn't always like that, though. I was a follower. I didn't know how to fake confidence yet. I remember idolizing how easy he can strike up a conversation with anyone. I also remember learning that it's partly a defense mechanism. I studied him and I learned that if you charm people, they won't always treat you like the other you are, at least not right away. Disarm with a smile that reaches your eyes, appear harmless, make them laugh, make them like you. What was never said was, make them like you so they aren't scared of you. But I am other. And even though I am friendly, jovial, funny, confident, and charming, none of those elements of my armor prepared me to navigate the questions. On one hand, I'm glad I'm a rare, mixed elder millennial. There weren't a lot of mixed kids my age growing up. I think I met one in the wild in high school, and I still talk to her from time to time. Most of my formative instances of racism, bullying, and microaggressions were done largely to my face. There was no extra layer of social media back then. There was also no record, no proof, no evidence for my defense. And it would be my word against his, the teacher's pet with excellent grades, the kid who was trusted in the office to cover for the secretary at lunch and guard the kids after school crossing the street versus the kid who didn't want to let me keep him from running into traffic. He called me the foulest thing he could. And I wonder now where he heard it. And in the end, the principal made me apologize to him. In the end, his mother raced up to my brother and I walking home from school in her minivan and screamed at us from the driver's seat to stay away from her kid. I was in grade 6 and my brother in 3. Congratulations, you were so fast. But it's because you're Black, isn't it? Black people are fast. Grade 5, after winning the 60-meter dash. You must be Mrs. Kimmel. I hope you don't mind me asking, but what is your background? In what? My career, my education? But I'm conditioned to know what they're really asking. I am Canadian. Okay, but where are you from? The blood pumps in my ears and I bite a venomous retort off the end of my tongue and I look to my husband. My mom is Canadian and my dad is Caribbean. There, I answered you. Now go away. Is it true that Caribbean women like to embarrass their spouses in public? The powerful white man asked me. That they tend to be very extra and confident? The rest of the table sat silent and I looked at my husband and repeated the question for him to answer. I couldn't tell if he was holding his breath, waiting for me to explode or to come to my defense, and he did the latter. Enraged, nauseous, and combative. No, you can't retaliate with all the rage and anger of your ancestors. Now is not the time. Now is not the place. You're the minority here. Someone's spouse picked up on my anxiety and spoke up. She offered that she is Irish and forced that information on him like a coded warning that he was out of line. Why was he so hell-bent on singling me out, the only visible other at the table? He could have come by and struck up a conversation about anything. Our daughters, the weather, anything. But the only thing he was interested in was classifying me. And I used to play that game. Why don't you take a guess? I'm curious what you think I am. I dislike that I did that now. I am fairly racially ambiguous and I didn't know how to navigate that demand. Are you sure you aren't a Latina? I bet you speak Spanish, argued the white elder boomer on his boat. Everyone else was silent. And I don't belong here and I don't want to play this game. Light-skinned girls are always stealing the good Black men. Light-skinned girls think they're so special. Light-skinned girls get what they want. They're treated better. You're spoiled. You're passing. You talk white. You're privileged. I'm also ostracized, fetishized, and outside. But society is woke now, right? Others are fighting for equality for the various individual facets of my identity. I won't get into how the bi and pan people like me are treated in the rainbow community, but the free-flowing, fluid nature of who I am causes many of the status quo to pause, even other oppressed people. Despite it all, I choose compassion, to normalize making people smile, to make their day. Hey, that's a stunning bag, or I really like how you phrased that. I choose to support people to become the best versions of themselves. I choose to speak up and advocate, and I choose to love, not just for me, but for my partner and my girls. And they're watching me, and that's them. I've barely begun to understand all the complexities I represent just by existing. But all I can do is live for myself and the ones that I love, and just exist as authentically as I can, so I can greet the person in the mirror with gratitude, grace, and pride. I advocate, I listen, I learn, and I educate and act as a bridge as often as I can, not to be walked on, but to be the connector between two sides, the space between, and perhaps that's my purpose, and perhaps that's who I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Can you show your video first? Oh, there you are. Hi. Can you unmute yourself?
I can do that too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation. You choose love. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing your experiences with us and providing us some examples of things definitely not to do. And also, you know, sharing your perspective. I think is really, really important. Katie, are there any questions or comments from the audience? And your slides advanced perfectly this time, so I think I figured out what the issue was, so yay.
No questions of yet, but lots of comments and hand clapping for Danielle's presentation.
Yes, and a big thank you to Katie actually for introducing me to Danielle for PechaKucha, because we were originally going to do this event back in November, and then we ended up pushing it, and we got more speakers, so thank you for making the introduction.
You're very welcome. I'm glad that Danielle was able to take part today. Just a comment to share with Danielle about dual identities. I think a lot of people really relate to that if they are of mixed origin, I'll say, and trying to find that space in between identifying yourself. We've heard a lot from other presentations about identity. And Danielle also comments again on how words are powerful. So thank you for sharing that, Danielle. We'll let the chat continue, and I'll let you know if there's any further questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today, Danielle. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
Oh, we do have a question coming in, Shanik. Sorry, yep. Danielle, no, if you can come back to us.
I'm going to just
here.
Stop slides while we do that, so go ahead.
Perfect. Just wanted to share a few comments. First, Danielle, a lot of people are giving you bravo. Amanda has said here that she's in tears and she feels you. So just a lot of that shared love, and yeah, lots of hearts in the chat for you. The question that I want to share is about, in your presentation, you talked about the privilege of asking questions. How can we all find space to ask questions and do it compassionately?
That's a tough one, and I struggle, and I figured I would get asked that, and I've been trying to find an appropriate answer. It really comes down to what your intentions are, and we'll pick up on it. If you're asking as just a point of conversation, pick something else. If you're asking because you genuinely want to get to know me better or get to know that person better, it will come out in the way you say it. And that would be my best advice, is just, hey, you know what? Tell me a little bit more about yourself. You know, we'll offer it if we want to.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you, Danielle. I don't think there's any more questions, Katie?
No more questions at this time, but lots of great comments. People love the power of words in their lives and in your story. Grand has also said here, Grand River Studios is adding, anything fluid is uncomfortable for many, and they're feeling what you talked about in your presentation, Danielle. Thank you so much.
I love you, Grand River Studios.
Yes, your presentation, as well as Amanda's and Mercedes and Sunday's, everybody's presentations are really resonating with everybody. So thank you, everybody, for sharing with us. Okay, Chloe. Could you unmute yourself, friend?
Yep.
Perfect. How you feeling?
Good.
Good. So I think we're good with your slides as well. And I will get started by introducing Chloe, who is our youngest presenter ever at PechaKucha, London, Ontario. Chloe is in the 10th grade. And she is joining us tonight from just outside of London. I believe it's, are you in St. Thomas, Ontario area?
Yes.
Yeah. So Chloe Ngakoso, how did I do? Did I get that right? Good. Is a 16-year-old girl who lives in St. Thomas. Ontario. Over the last few years, Chloe struggled to find a place for herself in the community. In June, Chloe protested in front of her school board to challenge them about their policies on anti-racism. Chloe also started painting images of empowered Black women. Now she has a t-shirt company inspired by her empowered paintings to fight discrimination and racism called Afro Queens T-shirt. Chloe's presentation is entitled "You Don't Have to Choose" and is about growing up mixed race with parents of different races. Chloe's message is that you don't have to choose one race or the other. Unapologetically embrace both races. And as I mentioned, Chloe is our youngest presenter ever. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Chloe. And when you are ready, I will set your countdown for you.
Ready.
Great, you got this. You've got this. I'm gonna just mute myself and take my video off. Here we go.
Hi, my name is Chloe Ngakoso, and I'm the owner of Afro Queens T-shirt company. Each of my t-shirts includes a quote. One of the quotes I use for my t-shirts is "Speak up, even if your voice shakes," by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Public speaking is very new to me, so please forgive me if my voice shakes tonight. My father is Black, my mother is white. At the age of 4, I told my mother I didn't want to be special anymore. During Multicultural Week, my teacher spoke about how me and another girl were special. I went home and cried. I didn't want to be special. I wanted to be white like my mom. This was my first feeling of not belonging. Later, I had a visit from my aunt. She lived far away. We had the same hair and we were the same color. When she left, I was upset. I thought she was my real mom. I asked my mom why my real mom didn't want me anymore. This was the first time I questioned my identity. I didn't match my mom or dad. I didn't believe my mom's explanation for a long time. At the age of 9, I moved to this small town. My father went back to Congo. St. Thomas was the opposite of diverse. I started noticing stares and microaggressions, even though I didn't know they were microaggressions at the time. My mom was blind to it. I immediately started experiencing racism. In grade 4, some kids in my class changed my last name to incorporate the N-word into it. That led to extreme anxiety and panic attacks, so bad that the school had to send me home. My feelings of not belonging just intensified. My teachers were sympathetic. I visited my aunt, who is also mixed race, for a week for advice at the age of 10. She could relate to my issues, but in the end, I ended up more confused, and the advice she gave me made me feel more divided and like I had to choose between Black and white. Over the next few years, I laid low as kids asked me for the N-word pass, and boys said they weren't attracted to Black girls. Even my teacher, the one person in the class that I should count on for guidance, support, and acceptance. Don't get me wrong, she was sweet and fun and got along with her students. But one day she called me her best little slave, and that was followed by a whipping motion in front of the class. This was more thoughtless than intentional, but it set an example to the other kids, and it was another seed planted, and just a reminder that I didn't belong. I was excited for high school. It would be different. But again, I was facing comments about my hair, stares in English class, not great. To Kill a Mockingbird brought on other microaggressions. One day I was told by a boy in the hallway that I had fleas followed by the N-word. My mom snapped. She called the school board to discuss racism in their schools. They ignored her. When George Floyd died, all I felt was rage, especially when our school board sent out a tweet saying that they stand with their Black students and do not tolerate racism in schools. I realized that I had to stand up for myself. I knew what they said was untrue. I needed to fight back. I wanted to protest, but it wasn't like me to do so. I was shy. My mom was shocked and was a bit uncomfortable. Confrontation was not her thing, but she supported me. We gathered the troops. On the day of the protest, I was nervous but gained confidence once I started hearing the encouraging honks from cars. This made me feel empowered, encouraged, and confident. I joined the Black Students Association. I struggled in the meetings, feeling like I had no right to an opinion. I felt whitewashed and like I didn't belong. My mom found me in a meeting, my camera off in tears. I felt low. I felt too white to be Black and too Black to be white. My mom and my aunt took me for a drive to encourage me to look forward to ways to embrace both my races. I started researching. I found depression was common for kids like me. Other kids were confused about their racial identity and felt like they were being rejected by both the white and Black communities. I started painting empowered Black women queens. I found myself fighting with my mom. She couldn't understand me. She wasn't in my skin. We had so many tearful talks. I felt that my mom couldn't validate me. One night we sat in the metro parking lot, both of us crying. We had a long talk about how I felt stuck and felt pushed away by both communities. This started my healing. I need to do more. I decided to continue fighting racism through creativity and fashion. I wanted to educate people positively through love, so I started Afro Queens T-shirt company. I used my empowered queens as graphics and included empowering quotes and take actions against racism on the sleeve. I also started connecting with more people like me, which helped me feel less alone. I started talking to my friend and realized he had the same feelings as me. He always seemed to brush them off before, and my own embarrassment of my identity and feelings kept me from pursuing the conversation before. My confidence started growing. I came to realize that instead of choosing a race, I really had the best of both worlds and started embracing myself and who I was. I started noticing the beauty and loving myself. I took more interest in my hair and skin and appreciated the color of my skin more. I started holding my head higher little by little and also started coming out of my depression. My family could even see the difference in my confidence. I want people to embrace who they are and what they look like. You are all kings and queens, no matter your race, sexuality, gender, or religion. Know that you are not alone. You have two beautiful sides, two races that form the unique person that you are. I am Chloe Ingekoso. I am proud of who I am. I choose to unapologetically embrace both my African side and my white Canadian side, while loving myself and fighting hate and racism. I'm not angry or confused anymore. I know who I am, know who you are, love who you are, embrace who you are. Thank you.
Well, I'm fighting back some tears here. I know Danielle is also fighting back tears. Just saw a comment from her. Thank you so much, Chloe. You are a brave young woman. And I'm curious to ask you regarding the protest that you did at school. Did you feel that you had a lot of support when you stepped up? Or, yeah, it takes a lot of courage to take initiative for something like that.
I definitely felt like I had a lot of support because my mom and my family have definitely always been really supportive towards how I feel, especially with racial experiences. Yeah. And some of my friends were supportive too. I had a friend there too. And so, yeah, I felt really supported.
Do you think that this is something that you'll do on a yearly basis to protest, like to create some awareness at your school?
I don't know, but I think it would be cool to find out later on.
Yeah. Now, you are a natural presenter and you're a natural speaker. You did very well. So kudos to you. And I see you're probably looking up at Mom right now. I know Mom and I have been communicating via text the last few months. So thank you, Mom, for all your support, and Dad. Thank you for joining us tonight. I know that Chantel was the one who introduced you to us tonight. So I know that I'm sure she's sending you lots of love and lots of support too. Katie, do we have any questions or comments for Chloe?
Waiting to see some questions, but lots and lots of great comments. Chloe, I just want to read a few of them for you. A lot of people have just said that you're very brave and incredible. Your voice is very powerful. They're proud of you. That your message was also really powerful. So all of these wonderful words to describe you today with your presentation. We're going to wait another minute to see if any questions come through, but a lot of claps and like power emoji for you today.
A lot of hearts, lots of hearts, I'm sure too. Good stuff. You're a beautiful young woman. Where can we buy your t-shirts? Yes. So maybe, Katie, if you Google Afro Queens t-shirt, is it just on Facebook that you promote it, Chloe, or do you have a website as well? Remind me.
I will have a website on Friday.
Okay.
That's when I'm working, this Friday. So
Great.
It'll just be afroqueenst-company.ca.
Great. And you have a Facebook page as well, right? Yeah.
And an Instagram page.
Awesome. I think what I'll do as well after the event in the next couple of days, I will send an email from Eventbrite to anybody who's registered, and we'll include everybody's organizations that they're related, that they're either heading up or related to, so that people can for sure check those out. And we'll also post them on the PechaKucha Facebook pages as well. So Amanda's organization, Sunfest, Chloe, everybody's organizations that you're related to. So thank you so much, Chloe. That was a beautiful presentation. And, sorry that you've experienced, that everybody has experienced like this negativity in your lives, and at such a young age as well. So thank you.
Thank you so
Janet,
much
would just have one question if I may jump back in for Chloe.
Yeah.
Chloe, you were really inspiring in your story about bringing your creativity and love for fashion into your life. Can you share for others how we might embrace our talents to help our own identity journey?
I think that when you have a passion and when you're also doing something that you love with it, it's a really good combination. So that's kind of what I did, was I combined my love for art and then my passion, which is fighting against racism and discrimination. So if you're good at like writing, I feel like it would be great to maybe write about stuff or create podcasts or something. I'm sorry, it's a really hard question for me. But yeah, take whatever you're interested in and your passion and put them together.
That was very well said. Thank you so much, Chloe.
Very, very well said. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you, Chloe. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for supporting as well. Okay, we have our last, I can't believe we're on our last presenter already, Leroy Hibbert. So I'll get you to unmute yourself for a second, friend.
Okay.
Perfect. I can hear you loud and clear.
Great.
Thank you for joining us as well, Leroy. And I'm going to get your slide organized here. And I will share my screen. Perfect. Here we go. Thank you for joining us again, Leroy.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Okay, here we go. Leroy, married to a wonderful woman named Helen, has 2 grandchildren. And as a speaker, educator, consultant, and workshop facilitator, Leroy addresses critical issues that range from cultural engagement, racial equality, and healthy relationships. His experience working with families, students, and community members has also shaped how he serves humanity. The title of Leroy's presentation is "The Conversation Continues, Exploring Race, Black History, and Racism from a Personal Perspective." Leroy chose this title and topic because of its personal significance to his life. The idea of having thoughtful and informative conversations about race, racism, and Black history lends itself in creating an atmosphere of understanding. Thank you again for joining us tonight, Leroy. And when you are ready, I will hit that timer for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, as the title slide states, the conversation continues. Exploring race, Black history, and racism from a personal perspective. Now, I can't speak for all Black people because our communities are quite diverse. And we don't have necessarily a Black community, we have Black communities. As you can see, this is my family. I have 4 sisters, and I'm the only boy in the family. I'm what's called the middle child. So I have 2 older sisters that are in Toronto, a younger sister that lives here in London, Ontario, and lives with my mother. And also my other sister, who's actually a teacher and lives in St. Thomas and married with 2 wonderful children. As I was growing up, I was actually born in Toronto. Most of my life has been spent in London, Ontario. This is actually a street that I lived on, it's Stroud. Across the street, our community was not very, very diverse. Yet we had wonderful people that were there that looked like me, possibly in degrees, and some did not. But as you know from these photos here, snow was a very interesting thing for me. I was a very active child. I know you see me smiling in the snowsuit there, but don't let the picture fool you. I'm probably pretty cold because me and cold don't necessarily agree. But my dad got me actively involved because he wanted to build a community with me and let me be exposed to people of different walks of life. And part of that is being part of what's called this idea of Cub Scouts. I was in Cub Scouts for a period of time and also Beavers. And it was very interesting. This is a Cub car that my father helped design and helped make when he was alive, because he did pass away a few years ago. And it was a very interesting conversation in working with this. And culture was very important to my father and to my family. See, my dad and mom were born in Jamaica. And Jamaica, right specifically in Kingston, being the capital of that nation. And they did not want that to leave me as an individual person, because that's part of what's called my identity. But growing up in this particular area in Canada, in London, Ontario, I went to a high school. And we had to actually have a journal in one of our classes. And we had to document every single day what happened to us. Now, I'm not a journaler per se, but something very significant took place. When I was in school, I wrote some things down that really possibly affected me. A friend of mine called me and told me that he's going to dress me up as Aunt Jemima. And this is actually Aunt Jemima here. This is actually a minstrel of a person that is of what's called from the Black community. And this is a minstrel that was used to defame and deface what's called people that look like myself. And the reason why I want to talk about that, because it affects a family. As you can see, my wife, and as you can see, my daughter and my grandchildren and my daughter's husband, we're a multi-racial family. And race and culture is part of what's called our narrative. And we do have to discuss these things because they impact how we shape and live in this world. You know, there's this idea about why do we need to talk about race, or specifically Black history? And Black history is a very interesting thing. There are many people that don't necessarily agree with it because they don't want their history distinguished in one particular month. But why do we talk about it? For education, for understanding, and also for awareness. I don't think there's problematic as long as we don't focus specifically on that particular month. Well, this man here, Mr. Carter G. Woodson, he actually started what's called Negro History Week in 1926. Then it morphed into what's called Black History Month. Why is it in February? Because of Abraham Lincoln and also Frederick Douglass. Both of these men, they're born actually in the month of February. And in Canada, it wasn't necessarily coming to this particular nation. So this woman, Jean Augustine, was a phenomenal trailblazer. She was actually the first Black woman to be in Parliament. In 1993, she became the first Black woman in Parliament. And in 1995, she decided to formally put Black History Month on the panel as far as Parliament, and they voted to make Black History Month something that is actually national in this particular nation. And this is actually a wonderful person, Viola Desmond, who was significant in this country. You know, our $10 bill is reflected of her. She actually was going to an area and she did some very interesting things in Nova Scotia. And this woman that I met just recently, when I was growing up in an area, she's a phenomenal woman. Her name is Minnie Jean Tricky Brown. I met her actually in Ottawa. She actually was living in Canada, but she's from America. She was part of Little Rock 9. She was one of 9 students that desegregated a high school in Little Rock called Central Secondary School. But I decided I want to visit a man, Dr. Martin Luther King, because he was a homiletic hero of mine. And this is actually his house. And I was able to sit down actually and read and just reminisce of what he actually meant to society. He was buried in Atlanta. He was born here as well. And he made some significant strides as far as who he was as a person. This picture here, this actually is what's called the eternal flame. And the eternal flame symbolizes the continuing effort to realize Dr. King's ideals for a beloved community, which requires lasting personal commitment that cannot weaken when faced with obstacles. It's been a very interesting year. Seems like it has not changed. We had a big Black Lives Matter march. And in that march in London, Ontario, a few women decided to organize this and 10,000 people showed up. One of the signs said, "I'm not Black, but I'm here for you. I don't understand the Black experience, but I will listen to you. I promise to stand up against racism wherever and whenever I see it." But growing up, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, some people want to be a fire person. This young man says in this poignant piece, "I want to live." Pausing and just reflecting on that, I want to live. You know, this was actually found in our community. This is a noose that actually is a racist symbol within our community. And after the Black Lives Matter march took place, a gentleman that actually owns what's called an organization, and he's a wonderful man, he found this in his mailbox on the right here, a doll with a noose on it. But when we talk about racism, racism is a belief that one race is better than another one. We're also talking about those that are from different communities as well that experience racism. This is actually a poster in Canada. Step aside, Whitey, the Chinese are taking over. Very terrible that's taking place right now. Thinking things and saying things like the Chinese virus, all those terms and phrases that impact various communities. Well, in conclusion, this wonderful woman, Keisha Thomas, you know, in 1996, she noticed that she was marching and protesting because apparently the Ku Klux Klan was actually coming down to the neighborhood in what's called Michigan. So this man on the bottom here was running away. And as he was running away, people noticed that he had what's called a Confederate flag on him. So people ran over to chase him down. And Keisha Thomas jumped on his body to protect him from the protesters from beating him up, hurting him, calling him names, even though maybe this gentleman may not even like her because of her skin color. And what happened was a few months or maybe a few years later, she was in a coffee shop. And as she was in a coffee shop, a man walked up to her and tapped her on her shoulder and said, "Thank you." And she turned around and said, can I help you?" And she said, "Yes, I just want to thank you because the person that you protected was my father." We all have to have courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to operate in its presence. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leroy. What a beautiful presentation. I'll have you show your video if you don't mind.
Oh, yes.
There you are with your beautiful library behind you. Thank you very much for joining us tonight and for presenting and sharing some of your experiences with us. I also do not relate to the cold. So 1995 was the year that Black History Month was finally recognized in Canada. Is that what you said?
Yes. Yes, it was formally recognized. Jean Augustine put it to the House of Commons and they voted, I think, 305-0 to have it.
Good. It seemed like that still took a long time though, didn't it? to recognize that here in Canada. Katie, are there any questions or comments for Leroy at this stage? I'm sure there's lots of wonderful comments already.
We have a lot of comments coming in, a lot of claps.
Yeah.
Thanking Leroy for his presentation. Lots of feelings of that it was very powerful, Leroy. And I think just with regards to how people are connecting to what you said, a really interesting connection to celebrating culture. And I know Leroy is very involved with the Black History Month festivities in London, where we celebrate and come together to identify and be with each other. So that was really great to see that in your presentation today. Continuing comments on thanking Leroy for sharing his presentation. We'll wait a minute to see if we have any more questions come through.
Sure thing. I will ask the rest of the presenters to maybe take themselves off video for a second and see if there's any other questions that come through or any other comments that come through for any of the presenters as well.
Just had a comment come in for Leroy from Janet. She's thanking you, Leroy, for sharing and highlighting some of the people who have advocated for Black history in Canada. And great to see that highlighted in your presentation. Fatima is also thanking you and enjoyed what you shared today.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie. Sunday, Danielle, Chloe, Mercedes, do you want to maybe take yourselves off video for a second, if you don't mind? Perfect.
We do have one question, Janik, for Leroy.
Yeah, please.
Leroy, you talked about carrying our identity through our lives and the importance of understanding our heritage. What can we continue to do to make sure that we don't lose that moving forward?
One thing we can do is, I guess, continuing the conversation and not having it necessarily something that's formal, but something that's also pleasurable. And when talking about our identities, we are very diverse people. So it's that idea of sharing who you are as a person. And those that are hearing it also listening to that as well.
Yeah, very good point, Leroy. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for anybody else, Katie, as well?
Yeah, we do have another comment that came in from Wilburn, saying that Black history here in the US and in Canada is needed, but unfortunately, since we don't have true history, which encompasses all of non-whites, I think that is a really profound message to share. And I know many of you have talked about experiences of racism in your presentations today. And I think, you know, moving forward with this platform and opportunities to share our stories and to educate ourselves and each other and bring about awareness, we can continue to move forward in a positive way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie. I'm gonna, I don't think I can set it, well, it's set to gallery view, but I think also the way we have it set up, it's only the speaker who's speaking that it goes out. But anyway, everybody's on screen. I just want to thank everybody once again for joining us this evening. Amanda, I think she had to pop off, but Mercedes and Leroy and Chloe and Sunday and Danielle, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And a big thank you also to Nate and Vince at Lab Solutions, as well as Katie. But before we log off, I just wanted to share a couple of things with the audience, with our audience. You know, just a reminder of different ways that we can be better allies. And that includes donating and supporting various BIPOC organizations by donating our time or money, encouraging others to do so as well, supporting small BIPOC owned businesses also. Do your research, you know, if there is a movement or a group that you do want to align with to help and to volunteer and to help out with, you do your research and reach out to them. Listen to other people's experiences without judgment. Learning about how oppressive systems work and how they can be fixed. So equitable housing, food sovereignty, police reform, cannabis reform. And speak up. If you hear somebody say something racist, speak up right away. If you hear somebody using derogatory language, say something. And amplifying the voices and messages of our BIPOC community. So thank you once again for everybody joining us tonight. I will also mention that the only social media platform that we have our PechaKucha Night London on is on Facebook. So feel free to join us there and to join the conversation there. We post old videos as well of different presentations throughout the year. And there's also an app that you can download for free. So it actually highlights a different PechaKucha presentation from around the world every day. So you can take a little 7-minute break from your computer screen to watch something maybe on your phone. But we do encourage you to check out PechaKucha.com because there are, I believe, tens of thousands of presentations that are uploaded to that platform. We will be uploading everybody's presentations as well to the PechaKucha platform, and we'll let everybody know when those are up and live if anybody wants to see them again or rewatch them or to check them out in the future. So once again, a big thank you to everybody online here who joined us as well as all of our presenters. And if you're interested in presenting at a PechaKucha event again down the road, feel free to send me an email. I think Katie is going to add my email address to the chat, but also you can reach out to me on social media. I'm not sure if we'll do another virtual event this year, but if we do, we'll let the community know. And I just look forward to seeing all of you in person at maybe the next in-person PechaKucha event down the road. So once again, thank you, everybody. Be kind and show courage and show lots of love to our community and to our community members, and let's get the work done for our lovely friends here. So thank you, and take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys and gals and lovely people.
you.